Hi everyone, my name is Nikita. I'm a part of the MWM community, and welcome to our MWM podcast. Today we have a very special guest along with us, and this special person is none other than Maddie, who is going to share with us about his love for mangas. So, hi Maddie, welcome to your own podcast.
Yeah, this is pretty weird because I have done podcast interviews with others and I have made others to do podcast, with other community members. But this is the first time I'm actually getting interviewed in a podcast. So I'm excited for this. So what's in the store, Nikita?
Okay, so to start with, all of us, would like to learn as to how you started feeling drawn to reading mangas and, what actually led you to start reading mangas.
Okay. Yeah. So I have known that comics are there. So I've read Tintin comics and Superman and Batman. So when I started reading, so I have read few comics, but beyond that, I never explored the comics genre in itself. So comics is not only about superhero comics. There are like normal fiction stories we read from books, right? So mystery, thriller, horror. So comics also has a variety of genres, and apart from superheroes, there are normal stories as well. So I didn't know this, but this year, February 2024, because of a friend in our book club, Saigam. So he reads mangas. So we talked at a point of time, and he was also talking about Persepolis, which is like a graphical fiction. So this book was coming again and again in all the book club meets. Like some or other people talked about Persepolis and this graphical stories. So manga, I thought, okay, let me give it a try, and I ordered three books in February, and one of them was so good, The Vagabond. The one about Japanese greatest samurai warrior, Miyamoto Musashi. So I think the manga that came to me was really impressive, and it gives a different feeling to the readers, compared to the print books. And so that's the reason I started reading more, and I became addicted. And we even have manga events now because of that.
Okay. So we'll get to know, or we'll get into the details of why you liked reading Vagabond so much. But before that, uh, how has your reading journey of manga so far been? Has it uh, how has it been different from reading prose novels?
So I have this approach or method, like, if I want to do something, I want to be prepared, or like refer to the best thing. So whether it's like thriller novels, I just search for like the top or the best thriller novels of all time. So for manga, when I was getting into it, so I did a blog search, like what are the all-time best mangas. So the top 15 I chose like 3, 5, and I ordered in Amazon, and I started reading. So I think reading the best of anything, like watching the best movies or reading the best books, kind of gives you the first impression, which is really good. And so that's the reason. So as I said, Vagabond was very impressive and I was reading in like one of the first few mangas. Like my first one was 21st Century Boys, but Vagabond was one that was amazing, and I fell in love with the genre. So I started ordering more. I asked people around, like, what's the best manga, like Berserk, and then Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball, I was like so happy when I discovered that Dragon Ball was a manga, because I have watched it as a anime during my college days, and people actually all over the world, Dragon Ball Z is famous because that got wide popular. But before that, the prequel series is Dragon Ball. So I watched Dragon Ball first. So I love the son Goku, Kid Goku, more than the adult Goku. So I was so happy when I discovered that it is actually a manga, and ordered that manga set as well. So I think the thing is, I'm drawn to it because of the pictures and the story and the dialogues, obviously. So the combination of these three makes it spectacular. You know, taking it apart from the print novels.
Great. So, do you feel that reading mangas requires the readers to pay more attention to understand the nuances of any character?
That is pretty common in anything, right? Movie or normal novels, or graphical stories. So even in novels, we miss out, right? So we kind of, character comes into the story in page 1 or 10, and then after like 60, 70 pages, the character comes back. But we would have failed to notice what the character does in the beginning. So this kind of thing is pretty common in the mangas as well. But I don't think the effort that needs to read a normal book is not required here, because everything is drawn out for you, and you don't have to imagine your character, like how it looks or the place they describe where how it is. So it's everything drawn out here. It's like a flight for your imagination. You just have to drive your airplane in the layoff that has been laid out. So that's the one thing. Reading mangas are more relax. I mean, it gives you this feel of meditation.
Oh, that was going to be my next question, actually. So, I remember you have mentioned a couple of times now that, reading mangas makes you feel meditative, makes you feel like you're in a meditative state. So, can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so there is a way to read the books, right? So very few people will take the book and straight away go to page number 50 and read. So unless it's an activity or like truth or dare, so we go from page 1 to page 2, and usually the way is left to right, top to bottom. So in print novels, you do this. So there's not much any effort. But in mangas or comics or any graphical stories, there is an order. So even for comics and graphical novels, it's left to right, top to bottom. But for manga, it's opposite. So right to left, and then top to bottom in the right to left approach. So this is one thing that you have to keep in mind. And then next, there are both pictures as well as dialogues, sketches and dialogues. Okay. So you have to read the dialogue to understand the story, how it is, progressing, as well as you have to see the sketches, like, okay, what's happening there? What's the character doing? So the character's face may have only one expression, but the dialogue will say multiple expression, and you kind of watch that one expression of the character and you imagine how he will give the different. So let's say the character is shouting, why did you didn't put sugar in the coffee? And in the mm, what do you say, in a book, it's just you're reading it, you will imagine in different ways. But in manga, you will have a particular expression for the character who's saying that dialogue. And then if it's like a comical thing, then you'll imagine like he's jumping around stuff to say that, right? So that's pretty much makes it very interesting. So you have a lot of things to follow reading a graphical story, like left to right or right to left, and then what is the dialogue and how it matches with the background. So all those things. So I think the different approaches or the number of things to follow makes it, you don't have to put any effort. It will become, you'll become like you'll get into the story, and it will get into you'll be in a state where you don't recognize what's happening around you. So not many will what do you say, get the state in reading a print novel. So graphical novels is, it makes it easier for a person to get into this meditative state. So that's one of the reason I love mangas. Like it's very difficult with the, unless I'm a thriller freak. So unless I'm reading a thriller novel, it's difficult for me to be hooked onto the book, or like when there is noise around. So it's going to be very distractive, right? But if the story is so thrilling, I would finish the book in a whole night, or like I don't mind the surrounding what's happening. So it depends on what is the story, like in print novel. But in mangas, even if the story is not great or the sketches are not great, you kind of get hooked to the different combination that I was saying.
Okay. So, is complex storytelling possible through this creative form?
Can you come again?
Is complex storytelling possible through this creative form?
I think that is the one of the reasons they have gone for volumes. Like both manga and comics, they go for multiple volumes. Uh, so the story, pretty much, whether it's print novel or graphical novels, there is complexity in both. But the amount of pages, I would say, is less when it in a print novel. So if it's 400 pages, then there's a long story. You have scope to develop a character or like put in more incidents or to make it more complicated. We see novels with like 1,000 pages, Harry Potter books, and also it's easier there. But in terms of sketching and then coloring in comics and the dialogues and the characters development, so it will be more effort is required. It is not like we cannot achieve complicated plots or like complex stuff in manga or comics. It will have a lot more pages. So I think that's the reason why both mangas and comics come out in volumes, right? So graphical novels are like just two chapters, and you see it like a arc of a character or some in case of Palestine, it was about the country, what's happening in the country. It's like a non-fiction graphical novel. So it was about the country. So if it was about some story, then I think it will require a lot more pages, and that's one of the reason they bring out in volumes. So complexity can be achieved even in mangas.
Okay, wonderful to know that. So, I am very new to, reading mangas, and I'm looking forward to reading Moss, which is what we discussed in yesterday's manga event as well. So, for readers, who are just now beginning to explore the reading mangas, you know, uh, what are your recommendations? And let's start with something which will be a little bit on the lighter note, not something as serious as Palestine or Moss. So what would be your recommendations, Maddie?
uh so comics, I mean, now comics are prevalent because of Marvel getting famous with all those movies. So I don't think I would have any recommendation there. So any Spider-Man or Superman, you should go check out the old comics like that was published in 1960s or 50s. So that'll be fun to read. But when it comes to non-superhero comics, I would say most of the so far what I've read are all depressing. I've never read anything. So there is this comics called Dot Self. So that is available in Kindle Unlimited. So if you have an app, you can actually download it in Kindle and read. So it's about this girl who has this technology where it's common like Apple phones and iPads. You can actually download your thoughts and memories into a dot self file and keep it on a Alexa kind of device. And it's basically to relive your memories and recollect some intimate moments with your dad or mom like that you want to relive again. So it's for that purpose. But in the story, what happens is like this dot self file gets hacked by people, and the company which is manufacturing this device and this concept or theme, they are very evil. So the hackers actually hack this particular dot self file and they kind of create clones. The clones are not exactly looking like that girl, it's like different people, but their memories or mind is with this girl. So whatever she has gone through, they know. So like now my dot self file, you're like not a human, okay, you're an organic human who has my dot self file. So you're also Maddie but in a different form and in a different body. So by the end of the comics, it's so philosophical, like, you kind of relate this, everybody says that what is spirituality? You should realize that everyone is God. So that is spirituality. So in this comic, by end of the comics, like everyone is a clone around her. So it was really beautiful. I think that's will be a good uh, what do you say, comic story for beginners. Manga, I would say Dragon Ball. So it's pretty fun, and Goku is there. Not the Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball 1, which is where kid Goku grows up to become the actual Goku who's famous all around the world. Apart from that, I would say 21st Century Boys, I didn't find any vulgar stuff, and it was like a suspense thriller novel. So it's the latest by the author, like famous author who created Monster. So I would say 21st Century Boys is also good to pick up.
Wow, that the manga that you just recommended sounded really interesting. The one where
Thoughts?
they were making multiple copies of a dot file. So I guess that just shows that you how complex a person is, and how many different dimensions could there be to a person's personality. Okay, so Maddie, we have seen comic books being adapted into movies. So do you feel that uh, through movies, these comic books or these characters actually become more humane and come alive? Or do you feel that, given that in the recent times, the quality of these superhero movies being made, is not same as before? Do you feel that they have actually, diverted and depleted the essence of actual content? And, there is now some, thinking through to be required to come up with, more interesting cinematic stuff, which has drawn inspiration from comic books.
Yeah, from my personal references, I watched the anime, Dragon Ball anime first, and then the manga I read. So I didn't find any difference. So I think the creators did a justice by not deviating or like trying to enhance the manga, you know. So whatever feeling I got watching the anime, same feeling I got while reading the anime. Like Goku was special both in both the forms. So in certain cases they should not mess up or like middle with the stuff that's already there in the book. But certain cases you need to improve because there is another manga called Fairy Tail, and it was so fun reading it. But I started watching the manga, I mean anime. It was not like I couldn't get that magical or like hilarious feeling in the anime. So they have tried to just replicate the manga, which is the same case as Dragon Ball. So there it worked out. So they just replicated the manga with music and then animated dialogues. It worked out. But here they have done the same thing, but in Fairy Tail it did not work out. So maybe the story was not as good as Dragon Ball, or they should have done something extra for the animation. Trying to do different rather than just sticking to the manga.
Mhm.
And in there is another case where Watchmen, right? So people see after I think two or three series and movies, still they don't feel they get the feeling of comics. So it all like for readers, they'll never get satisfied with watching any movie. Okay, so still they are comparing James Bond. James Bond also was actually a
Book.
novel, right? So still they are comparing. There is no other James Bond, like no James Bond who came close to the James Bond people imagine when they read. They say that George Lazenby, I think, he acted as one movie as James Bond. So the readers kind of have that feeling that he was the only James Bond who came close to the imaginary character that people imagined when they read. So yeah, I mean, readers will never get satisfied. But on the other side, if you see, there's more number of people who watches movies without even reading. Like very few people will have reading habit, right? So there are a lot of people who just watch movies and animations. So for them to watch it, like how I just watched Dragon Ball first time as an anime, and I like got in love with Goku. So there will be obviously. So for them, it does not matter this comparison. So unless it does not satisfy the majority of the audience group, think you shouldn't do stuff like sometimes it works out, like I said, Dragon Ball worked out, but Fairy Tail didn't work out.
Mm.
Sometimes even if you give your best attempt, the comics is so good, it's in a level that you cannot get that feeling anywhere else. Like even after watching a movie based on that comic, you don't get that feeling, right? Watchmen is the greatest comic of all time.
Mhm.
So, and there is a movie and there's a series, but still people feel that whatever the comics offers, the movies or series doesn't offer. So that is some extraordinary case. So it depends on the director or the filmmaker, like what he's gonna choose. Like, let me stick to the theme or concept that's shown in the manga or the comics. Let me try to enhance something. So it's kind of luck, I would say.
Okay, so talking of films and knowing that you are also into filmmaking, if you were to choose stories from India to create a graphic novel, what would those stories be about?
I happened to write a story in an online writing event, and it was about mangas and cave paintings. So on that 1 hour, whatever creative ideas I got, I just wrote the story. So I would say this Ajanta cave paintings are
Hmm.
very famous, right? So there are so many caves in India with a lot of sketches. It's all over the world,
Hmm.
but all the popular myths we have already seen it as a movie or a comic, like Hanuman, Kid Hanuman. We have Kid Bal Hanuman and Bal Ganesh. There's movies like animated movies for kids, animated series, and even comics now. So the one thing that is not explored is the caves. Caves also offer a lot of stories, right? So we should try to find in every state do we have caves like this with paintings or sketches and try to convert them into mangas. I think that will be a good start.
Okay. So I also have one idea here, um, which is related to uh, girls reaching the age of puberty.
Okay.
So I realized, speaking to multiple people, I'm not sure if the education system has changed now in that regard, and now from a very early age, students are being made aware about, what happens when you reach the age of puberty. So especially for girls, because uh, after a point, every month they will be having their menstrual cycles, and uh, I have spoken to people, and so many times people have mentioned that when they actually reach that age, they were not even aware about you know what this is, and that they are going to get periods every month. So, if we could come up with some graphic novels or some comics, which is actually, in a light-hearted but knowledgeable way, making, young readers aware of these things. Not only would this be something, that is enjoyable for them, but would also, in a way, educate them that, okay, it doesn't have to be very, science-like, but maybe it can be informative in that sense. And yeah, I'm yet to do my research on whether books or graphic novels like these already exist. But yeah, if it helps in raising awareness in young people even a little bit, I think that would help.
I mean, there are already not in India, so India is just catching up, right? So the later part you mentioned, whether there are any, so Persepolis, I haven't read, but from what people have talked about, it's about women and their life, how to protest in a peaceful way where their family would not be harmed or like you know collateral. There's no collateral damage, and it's also about how suffering women go through suffering. So I think it's there. Like I have happened to read Embroideries, the same author by Persepolis, but for some reason I read Embroideries first. So it's all about women. So these taboo stuff that we consider as a taboo, it's not actually taboo, right? So it's there. So in India, I don't think it's pretty common. So I was seeing a LinkedIn post today where I was not even watching the video. It was on mute. So there were like descriptions and I was reading it. So we learn about integration and then differentiation and all those complex subjects and topics in mathematics, chemistry, physics. But sex education, starting a business, and dating life. So these are all like it's not. It's maybe it's too much, too advanced. What we are speaking is too advanced for India, but these are at least starting a business and how to become an entrepreneur. Maybe these kind of what do you say topics should be added on like a yoga class or like we have this extra period where we talks on nothing related to the academics, right? So we should have one session like that from the school, high school stage at least, all about this. And earlier in our podcast, Aprajita has talked about this non-fiction book called it talks about sexual abuse for the children very early on, like they don't even know they are like sexually abused. So that's a very important topic to be taught. Like what if a stranger or a person who you know well, your uncle or someone like approaches you with bad intention, how do you attend, how do you recognize that intention? So all those things should be taught. I'm not sure like why it is come up to a level where somebody has to read it from a book. And yeah, these are like topics that India may not be advanced to make such changes in the educational system right now. but it should be there is what I also feel.
Okay, Maddie. So last but not the least, which is the manga that you have heard of and you're looking forward to read, in the coming days?
Everybody, I think there's a lot of groups, like Berserk groups. They'll say like Berserk is the best novel, man. And then One Piece group, no, One Piece is the best novel. Like it's still running. It's the longest running manga. And then there's another group, Naruto. Even before I heard about what do you say, mangas, they'll come and say Naruto is the number one. I would say, as far as I'm concerned, Naruto is the number one. So out of all these number one mangas they consider, I actually would like to read One Piece. So I have purchased it. So One Piece is about this voyage through what do you say, oceans, right? So I like that kind of adventure. So I'm looking forward to read One Piece. Also Vinland Saga. So Vinland Saga is also based on ship voyages. So I would like to read those mangas.
Great. Thank you for all the recommendations. And, I hope, our readers, after hearing this podcast, will, also feel motivated to, discover reading mangas. And I definitely am looking forward to read some of the books that you have recommended. So thank you so much, Maddie. And hopefully we will, keep on adding more people to our manga group and have these monthly events, which was so much fun yesterday.
I mean, yeah, it was actually a different experience being on the other side. I have interviewed people, but I've never got the chance to speak, to get questions and then to answer them. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for conducting this podcast. And I'm looking forward to your more, being the interviewer, and you should go and ask other people about books or movies, whatever you wish to.
Yeah. Thanks, Maddie. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Thank you, guys.